Rosslyn House had a phenomenal view of London. So, of course, we watched the Battle of Britain from our windows when we were not in the air raid shelter. Although I tended to sort of sneak out and go and watch because I could see the fires and the German bombers, illuminated in the searchlights. That was real heady stuff, you know. Later, or actually not later, earlier, there was one day that I remember I was in the garden, and there was this roar, and I looked up, and there was a German Heinkel was coming, and I could see the pilot with his goggles and his head looking out, and he was obviously trying to get his bearings because I thought he was going to hit the hill. I mean, it was just around. And about 30, no, it couldn't have been 30, maybe 10 or 15 seconds later, two Spitfires were barreling exactly on the same path. That was all the noise. And of course they started, I could hear them shooting, and eventually there was a plume of smoke, so they got him. But so this would go on, and it was watching the dog fights during the day, because you were wondering, was it one of ours or one of theirs? They'd come plummeting down with smoke trailing and stuff like that. And that was, as I say, very heady stuff. And then going to school was fascinating because there was a lot of shrapnel on the road. And it was suggested it would be helpful to collect the shrapnel, so we had bags or buckets or whatever, putting the pieces of shell to collect so that they could melt it and shoot it back. And the prize collection was always the fuse, the shell fuse, which was the settings for the explosion at a certain altitude. So that was, those were real collector's items. Those you could trade. And so it was great fun collecting. Of course, it also meant that because the air raids would come in the morning, was when we always hoped it would be in time to slow us down on going to school, because then we could do duty collecting the shells, the ammunition, the spent shells, the shrapnel, and be late at school. So that was a benefit, turn in a good deed by turning it in, and then in the evening, we'd spend the night in the shelters because they would do some bombing at night.